Hi, this is Andrew Egger with the Bulwark. I'm here with my colleague Adrian Carrasquillo to talk about his new Huddled Masses newsletter on immigration, love in the time of self-deportation. We're in such a weird situation right now where a lot of people who are, have previously been in sort of like a penumbral state as far as their immigration status is concerned, are getting scooped up, getting deportation orders, getting imprisoned by the new administration, and that's causing a lot of different issues in a lot of different ways. Today, Adrian, your new newsletter is focusing in on one family in particular that's been swept up in some of this stuff. Can you just talk to me a little bit about these people and what they're facing right now?
Yeah, I've been sort of fascinated with the self-deportation concept just in general, that now, first they said they were going to go for criminals and gang members. Obviously, we know that they've expanded beyond that and they're getting people who've lived here for a long time. So they go after an immigrant who's from Colombia and had a deportation order from 2019. But when he checked in with ICE every year, it was no issue. He signed some papers and he was out until next year, until he had to return. But now his wife is affected. She's a U.S. citizen. She's from California. They live in Tennessee now. And so I was fascinated by what could happen that would basically be your country saying, sorry, like, we're deporting your husband, which means if you want to be with your family and with your 2.5-year-old son, you need to leave the only country that you've known that you're a citizen of, which I thought was pretty crazy.
Can you just tell me a little bit about the couple, how they met,
Yeah.
what situation they're in right now?
I was interested. Obviously, the story says that it's about love, and I wanted to tell a love story because I wanted to know the ways that people meet in these sort of tangled different ways at different points in their lives. And this was during the COVID pandemic, and she said she had gotten out of we call her Emily in the story, we call him Diego to protect their identity. And she told me that she had gotten out of a long marriage, and frankly, she was struggling financially. She needed a job. She was delivering for Grubhub and DoorDash, and her and her 20-year-old daughter were going hungry at times, right? So, in comes, she goes to pick up food at a restaurant, and she meets who would be her future husband, Diego, and she's clear that he's flirting with her, and he like offers her to come back later, and he'll give her a burger, which she does, and then she sort of stays away for a while because she knew that he was flirting, and she didn't want to get into this. And I sort of love the idea that then she said one day, screw it, I'm giving this guy my number, and returned back to the restaurant. And so they talked all night, they started dating, and they moved from California to Tennessee. And I think that's where some of the trouble starts, where you're now not in a liberal California. And so he was one time stopped by police 2 blocks from their house, and then they said marijuana possession. Of course, she says, the police officer said he was driving fine, so why'd you stop him in the first place? And she says that since they moved to Tennessee, he's been pulled over by cops more, which she attributes to racism. So, he had this charge, and he had actually he's been in the U.S. for 12 years. He had come in 2013. He had applied for asylum. It was denied, but they sort of let him out to do these yearly ICE check-ins. And then when he went in for his yearly check-in in February, they were none the wiser. They had no plans of leaving. They had just bought a Honda Prologue EV, 5 months ago. And so they had no plans that this was going to be any different than the past years they have since he's been doing his check-in, except this year they brought him to a back room. They detained him. They sent him to Louisiana from Knoxville, Tennessee, and he was deported within a few weeks.
Yeah, yeah. So just to talk me through a little bit of the kind of then decision tree for the rest of the family for
Yeah.
Emily, and like what were they looking at?
Mhm.
Essentially how have they decided to move forward?
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about. I think I would be so upset and so hurt, that this is the country that I'm from and now I have to leave. And so it was sort of interesting the way she said it to me. She said, like, ultimately it was no decision at all. Like, she said that they on their own would sort of be bad parents, but together that they're perfect, that he's sort of very playful and maybe doesn't have as many rules for the son, and that she's very like keep the trains running. But that together it's a family, right? And so she said for that reason, there was no question at all. I think in the dark moments when she went to the 9-hour drive to Jena, Louisiana. I mean, this is part of what the administration does as well, which is that these Louisiana detention centers, which are like known for human rights abuses and also for being inaccessible, they want it that way. They want it to be difficult for family and lawyers to go find and track down the person that they're, trying to ship out of the country. And so when she spoke with him, he thought he had lost his family. He thought she had given up on him because he didn't hear. She was looking for him. She was trying to find out. His ice locator went dark. And so she had no idea where he was. And then ultimately her decision was, I want to keep the family together. She had considered other countries, but she's going to go to Colombia and she's going to be with her husband and with her baby.
That's such an insane story. I wanted to drill in on a couple of other little things here, because one thing that really struck me was how you mention her father. I'll just quote from you here. Emily's father, a Vietnam veteran and a diehard Trump fan, got along well with Diego, so well that he officiated at their wedding in January 2023. I think that's such a striking little detail of the way that kind of the abstract notion where Donald Trump's kind of broad strokes immigration policies still pull really well for a lot of the electorate. Like, yeah, of course, like illegal immigrants shouldn't be here. They should be deported, and we should do that at scale and as quickly as possible. A lot of people kind of buy that in the abstract and at the 30,000 foot level, who then, when it comes down to the actual individual human beings involved, it feels very different for a lot of them.
Absolutely right. I think that we've seen enough polling. We've talked about it ad nauseum. There was certainly anger about the way that Joe Biden handled the border, and they wanted the border to be strengthened. But beyond that, there were so many polls and so many stories that have come out where Americans weren't really supporting some mass deportation effort that was going into schools or hospitals or churches or taking out their neighbors or the parents of their kid's friend from school. And so, this is exactly that, right? And I thought it was important to talk about the Trump supporters in her life that are sort of like, well, what's going on now? Her father, who clearly was a Trump supporter, a diehard Trump supporter, and ended up thinking that Diego was just an amazing guy and he was there for her when her father got a brain tumor and when he died last year. That's family, right? That's what we're talking about here. And just to see the way that this family has been affected and those ripple effects, because then she also talked to me about a lovely Baptist couple, neighbors of hers that are 81 and 82 years old and didn't have kids of their own. And her and her husband were like kids to them. And he was showing the husband how to garden and they just love the son. And she told me the wife has cried since she found out that they're having to leave. So, again, just the way that these policies affect real people and then those ripples that are now pulling in Americans, U.S. citizens as well.
I did want to ask also, just kind of from the opposite side of it, maybe I don't know if you'd call it devil's advocate or what, but when I'm reading this story and I'm looking at, that we're talking about a guy who has had, a deportation order from a judge since, long before Donald Trump got in, since the first Trump term, really, and that has been just kind of like deferred. I'm just kind of like, as a layman, I see that I'm like, well, that doesn't seem like a particularly sustainable or stable situation either, right? I mean, to have the kind of pre-existing system where the courts are kind of churning through these people, and a lot of people are in kind of limbo, and they're like, I guess it's fine for now, and I guess nobody's deporting me yet, and I can continue to live my life, and I can even continue to put down roots and things here. I don't know. I don't know what to really ask about that, but it doesn't seem like the pre-existing situation was exactly ideal either, right?
No, I mean, there's a reason that Democrats and Republicans have agreed for a generation that the immigration system is broken. And when I speak to, immigration lawyers about this stuff, they say there's a way to do this. You bring a lot of resources to immigration judges and to immigration courts, and then you're able to do the work that's supposed to be done for these incredible backlogs and things like that. I mean, it's like we always know this about Donald Trump. It's always just sort of like black and white. Everybody's out. Well, these are these complex matters, and what he's done with immigration is just sort of like chip away and destroy the foundations of things like asylum and legal immigration and different programs, refugee programs that he has just sort of decided that he wants to get rid of. And so, of course, you're right. There is the other way of doing this and following the law and sort of being smarter with an immigration system that perhaps is not as permissive and is about law and order. And then that's going to be hard. And that's going to, and then maybe the flip side of that will be that some Americans won't like the way that that's being done. But I think it's pretty clear that the sort of, way that Donald Trump is doing everything with mass deportation has all of these unintended consequences as well.
You don't really get into this in the piece, but it's the thing I've been noodling on with the big beautiful bill, that has this massive expansion for border enforcement money in terms of hiring more ICE agents and creating more detention centers, and just a very small kind of marginal increase for the exact what you're talking about right now, the backlog, the immigration judges to work through all of that. I want to get back though to the family, because obviously that's the main focus of this particular story, is just kind of the human plight that these people are going through. And I guess just what's next? I mean, like they've decided that they're going to follow him to Colombia, as you said. Logistically, what does that look like? I mean, I assume she and their son will still be U.S. citizens. Are there any obstacles on the other end for establishing residency there? Or, I mean, what does their family kind of need to do in order to be reunited here?
I think that Diego has been working on his side on the, getting a job, getting a license. If the U.S. had let him keep his license, it would have been easier in Colombia to get his license. He's going through 6 weeks of driver's ed. He got a motorcycle license. She got him a motorcycle so he can get around. She's getting a passport for her son. And so they're going to head there in June. So they're going to head there very soon. And, I will say that, I also have, a part 2 of this Love in the Time of Self-Deportation story coming out. Another family, they're going somewhere else. And it's not, a Latino family. It's not a Latino immigrant. So, again, it's like when you bring up the stuff of everything that's going on with this big, beautiful bill and how that's going to increase the detention resources and surge all these resources for mass deportation efforts, we know that everything that's going on is only going to get worse in terms of some of those unintended consequences. So on Friday, we'll have another family as well and what they're dealing with.
Well, thank you for continuing to follow this story. Thank you for continuing to surface all of these stories of these people that we would. I mean, I feel like I write about national politics, and if I didn't write about it, a million other people would write about it. And the stuff that you don't write about, if you weren't writing about it, who knows if we'd ever hear these stories at all. So thanks for doing it, Adrian, and thanks for coming on to talk about it.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I appreciate you.
Thanks as well to all of you guys out there for listening, for following along. We hope you subscribe to the Bulwark feed. Head over to thebulwark.com to get Adrian's Huddled Masses newsletter. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Hey guys, it's Tim and Sarah. We're here with my frenemy, John Lovett from Love It or Leave It. June is Pride Month, and we're going to be live in D.C. on June 6th for World Pride, for a very special live show fundraiser featuring the three of us, plus some gay special guests.
Crooked and the Bulwark will be donating the proceeds from this fundraiser to the Immigrant Defenders Law Center to support Andre Romero, the makeup artist who the Trump administration wrongly disappeared to El Salvador and who is currently being held in Sakat.
Go to crooked.com/events.
And we will see you all on June 6th.